What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hockeytown University. Here, I'm Zach. We got our good friends Matt and Derek. Fun fact about Derek, we actually just hired him full time. No salary, no benefits. He just has to look at our faces and hear our voices all episode.
As a
How's that
matter
make
of
it?
fact, he's
Kind of
got
hard.
this.
It's kind of.
Hit up $1 an hour, guys.
Yep, that's all we need.
Before we go any further into the episode, we do want to extend our thoughts and prayers out to Michigan State University on what happened on Monday night. We did find out the news about the tragedy that happened after our recording. And once again, we just want to send out our thoughts and prayers out to those that were affected, those that are going there. So continue on. Why is that whenever I have a take, it ends up being denounced? I thought VRANA was just going to stay in GR forever, and here we are. And it's all because of Ben Sherratt hitting Lucas Raymond. Does anyone else feel like whatever take they have, it just gets knocked off the shelf? Or is that just...
I have an idea for you. Since everything that you say ends up being incorrect the week after, how about you come out with a take this episode that says the Detroit Red Wings are going to miss the playoffs and not get Bedard? How about you say that, and then the opposite will happen?
Oh, okay.
I mean, the worst part is, what if that does happen? Then we get to blame Zach, I guess.
I don't want to put those words in my mouth and spew them out because
no, man, I'd be praising him. I'd drive down to Toledo and kiss you on the lips if that happens. It'd be all because of you.
It'll all be filmed too. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, that'll be bonus content. Absolutely. We'll put that as a short.
But talking about VRANA, he is a healthy scratch for tonight. So we are recording this Wednesday night. It's 7:30 currently. They do play tonight at 9:30 p.m. against the Edmonton Oilers. I just want to start off with a quick question with what are you guys expecting out of tonight's game, seeing as though we just played them last weekend. Once again, like I said in one of those later episodes, ragdolled, dummied, whatever you want to call it. What are you guys hoping to see? Do you guys see that there's a possible outcome where the Wings could win tonight? Leslie, let's start with you, man.
Well, I'm going to refer you to the prediction that I made last week. I'd like to see some wins. And they're currently are they on a 3 or 4 game win streak? I know they're on a win streak, but I don't know the exact number. So 3. Okay, so it is 3. So let's see 4 tonight. Let's see 5 tomorrow. I think there's definitely a possibility. I mean, I know that whenever a team goes into Edmonton's barn, that's a notoriously pretty tough place to play in. And of course, you have 2 of the best players on the planet you're playing against. So I definitely do see a path to a win here. I think either what it's going to be a 1-1 split. And I guess you can pick which game they want to win and which game they're going to lose. If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on a loss tonight and a win in Calgary. So we'll see. Hopefully they prove me wrong.
What about you, Derek?
Well, with the hot streak we've been on, say if the momentum doesn't push into this game, I know our last game against Edmonton wasn't the best one in our careers, but the 5-on-5 was pretty good. And as long as we stay off the penalty, I think we shouldn't be too bad. Sorry to go against you, Leslie, but I think we might have a win possibility tonight if we keep the momentum going.
I think I'm kind of in the mix between you two. To be honest with you, I want to win, obviously. Do I think that it's going to be a tough win? Yes. So I do see a world where it's going to be a loss for the Red Wings. Is that a bad thing? No, but like Derek said, if you could stay competitive 5-on-5, I think that is a moral victory, at least for the Red Wings, because that's definitely something they've been lacking all season, right? So we definitely want to see more of that. That's actually something that they've been doing on this win streak. And I feel bad because I talked about how someone that I went to high school with contacted me on Instagram and asked me if there was a chance that they could come out with a streak. And I'm here to say that I am wrong, and that's okay. I'm not an expert, and anything in the hockey world is capable of happening, and I'm glad that I'm wrong because they've been looking phenomenal. I mean, they've been outscoring their opponents 13-4. Let's go ahead and just talk about the game that they had on Monday night against the Canucks. We recorded right before that game, so we really didn't get to touch on that, nor did we get to put in our predictions. Derek missed the last episode, but we did talk about the previous games. But what a freaking game, man. I mean, Dylan Larkin, right before we started recording, Derek and I were touching base on that, and this man just kicked it up a notch. I don't know what he was drinking or doing at the All-Star game, but he is just a completely different person. He ended up getting the first 2 goals in the game. I mean, he looked lightning fast out there. His hands looked better than they normally do. I mean, this is someone that is showing the haters that he does belong as a Red Wing. He wants to stay here. He's a captain and he wants to get paid and he wants to show it and prove it to everyone. He's now on pace for 30 goals in the season, if that means anything to you guys. And if you look at the team, he's leading the team in goals by a healthy margin. I think it's Raymond and Perron or Kubalik that are tied together next, and it's like a 10-goal difference or like 5 or something like that. Someone else can look that up for me. But yeah, Larkin definitely stole the show, and he had the game-winning goal. Robbie Fabry scored. Lidstrom actually scored for once, so that was good to see. P.S. Seider is another person who scored, and he has been looking really, really great ever since that last Edmonton game, and that is a huge surprise, and I love to see that. Bergeron got another goal, and when we get down deeper into the conversation of the game, VRANA as well has been looking really, really good, and that's a great third line. I love that line right now. Going over that, it's Jonathan Berggren, Joe Veleno, and David Perron. You had that David Perron as that dad showing these young guys the ropes, and I think that's freaking great. I think that's phenomenal that they're doing that, and that shows what Perron brings to the team, right? Like it's not just the goal scoring. It's not just the puck carrying skills that he has, and it's not just the power play advantages that he brings to the table. It's the leadership, the mindset, and the hockey IQ that he has that he can provide to these younger guys. So, but I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think from the game? Derek, let's start with you.
I mean, the Red Wings played the entire time with Vancouver. It was a beautiful game to watch. They did all the little things that they were supposed to do correct. They didn't try to be fancy. They didn't try to puck anywhere. No backhand passes to nobody who was there. They didn't even try to do the dump and chase anymore. It was most turn it back around, pass it to D. I was like, thank you. The one thing that drove me crazy for the last 3 years is them just dumping it deep, chasing it, then losing it again. On Monday, it went perfect. And the unsung hero that no one may have not got too much on the score sheet, but for Tuesday, oh my God, look at the kid go. I say kid like he's not my age, but at the same time, holy crap. He's beating everybody down, taking control of the puck, making plays happen. Loved watching the guy. Hopefully, he stays with the team. I know we're not talking about trade stuff yet, but he's the one guy I would like to stay with Larkin, that's for sure.
Leslie?
Yeah, man. I mean, that game was just. You want to talk about a beatdown? That was a beatdown right there. That is the kind of game that a team that the Detroit Red Wings are now should be playing against a team like Vancouver. I mean, it was just. I don't think there was any point in the game, like pretty much from the get-go, where I thought that they were in jeopardy of having a little bit of a tighter game or losing. I mean, they were just in control the whole time. I mean, Dylan Larkin, he's like Greg Jennings, man. He put the team on his back, though. I believe he had 2 goals and an assist, so he was pretty much like like the majority of that offense. So yeah, he's been incredible. He's playing like a guy who every point he scores, he's saying, "Put another 100K on my contract, Steve." I mean, he's really, really just lighting it up right now, and I absolutely love seeing it. And I I really do feel like once we can get some top end talents to play with him, he could be an 80, 90 point guy easily. And whatever contract he signs, if it's below 9 million, it might even look like an underpayment. So yeah, it's really good to see him play like that. Um, and Berggren too. I mean, Berggren stays hot. He had a goal a little late in the third period to put them up 6-1. So it's really good to see him just kind of continue his scoring streak right now. And Ville Husso looks like he's back to that early season form that we saw when they started right out the gate. I mean, he's just really not letting anything by right now. He's got, I believe it's 4 goals against in the past 3 games. So yeah, he's been a brick wall. The only thing I'm really concerned with his workload is I don't really want to see him get burnt out too much. I know there's a lot of goalies who will play 4, 5, 6 games in a row, and they're expected to keep up that stellar play, and it's just the work is too much, and they eventually collapse. You kind of saw that a little bit with him in midseason, not really like a drastic collapse, but still, it was clear that the workload was too much. So hopefully, against some of the, I want to say, lesser talented teams, we're going to see Hellberg step in and take a share of the starts. I honestly feel like Hellberg could have played this past game because, to be honest, it's Vancouver. There's not much of a threat there. And it's like Derek said, they didn't really have to try any of their, their get cute with it, like any of their crazy blind passes, and that's pretty much because they didn't have to. I mean, Vancouver put no pressure on them whatsoever. So yeah, it was really good to see a dominant win. It feels like we haven't seen that in a long time this season.
I mean, based on that last penalty of the game, beautiful.
Yeah.
Take that net out every time. Don't let them score.
Yep.
He wanted to keep his save percentage and goals against average up, and to not cut off you guys there, Leslie, and I'm sorry, but to kind of go off of some of the things that you guys have talked about, Husso to start, he hasn't had a below a .941 save against in the last 3 games. Granted, 2 of those ones are from Vancouver, and they did just trade Bo Horvat. He's been looking really good. Even against Calgary, he had a .972 with 1 goal against. I'm not doing the math right here to calculate the last 3 games, but yeah, that's really freaking good, and it's good to see that he's been doing so well. And you're right, Leslie, that does kind of scare you where you don't want to ride Husso too much, but for the Red Wings, we know that we don't have a better option right now. We like Hellberg.
We don't.
But for the backup role, when you need someone for the back-to-back games, which is going to happen for tomorrow's game against, do they play Calgary again? Yes.
Yes, tomorrow's Calgary. Yep.
Yeah, so that's probably when we're going to see Hellberg to give Husso that break. And it kind of sucks to say that's the only time Husso can get a break unless you're in the All-Star break or you just get like that random week off. So eventually, yeah, there's going to be a point where Husso might get burnt out again, and
that just really concerns me because you saw that a little bit last year with Ned, and when he came in this year and he was just a huge step below where he should have been, and I think that is really attributed to him not really being a starting goalie anywhere other than the AHL, and all of a sudden he goes into a team where, I mean, let's face it, our defense last year was way worse than it is this year, and it's still not great this year. So yeah, you really can't have a goalie start that many games and be expected to just stand on his head every night. It's not a good formula for longevity in the league.
So, to go off of Husso, let's talk about Larkin, who has gotten 2 goals the last game. So he scored 2 goals last night, but in the last 4 games, I wrote this down weird. Let me look at it this way. So, yeah, I wrote it down really weird. Larkin in the last 5 games, he's got 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points. Okay, I did write that down right. Don't mind me. But in the last 10 games, even before the All-Star break, Larkin's on 11 points. He's got 6 goals, 5 assists in the last 10 games. Granted, in those last 10 games, he's a -4, but he's a ±0 in the last 5. I know that we can't really go off a plus-minus, but that still kind of does mean something with a team that still really isn't that good. So, I know it's a dumb metric to go off of, but you still have to count it towards something because it does somewhat matter in today's NHL world, slightly. Another player that's been looking really great, and even without Wallman, Mo Seider. Mo Seider, he has 5 assists, 5 points in the last 4 games. He got an assist in Monday's night game. Is Mo Seider now coming back to form where he has the capability to be the Larkin defense where he makes his teammates and line mates better? Because I kind of see that now, where Seider just kind of, it wasn't, I guess if you want to call it a roller coaster, where he just had like a tiny little dip, Maybe that's because of Sherratt. However, it's kind of tough to say that now when him and Sherratt have been doing so well with Wallman being out. But I do want to say I think that the true test will come tonight against Edmonton, who is better than the two Vancouver games that we played, and then better than Calgary, obviously. But Calgary isn't a stick in the mud either, and he looked good in that Calgary game as well. Both him and Seider. So is Seider back in form to where we can consider him to be that top elite defenseman? And is he finally over that little sophomore hump, Leslie?
Yeah, I think he definitely is. I mean, you've been watching him the past, I don't know, I'd say 15 or 20 games, and it's really hard to say that he's not the best player on the ice. I mean, the way that he controls play at the blue line, the way that he can, just stick handle the puck and make some magic happen, set up some beautiful plays. I absolutely love seeing it. I know that we talk about the power play and how terrible it is right now, but I really do feel like on the power play, he's pretty much consistently the best player there. The way he can just play a reliable quarterback on that power play, and he's always trying to chip in offense there. He's just that big, steady, reliable defenseman. He'll score a goal, score an assist, punch you in the face, clean hit. You're in the hospital for a week. I mean, he does it all. He really does it all. So I do think he's back to form. I think I don't really know what you could say about the beginning of this season to point towards his slow start. Maybe it's just shaking off some rust, I suppose. Maybe he had a pretty long summer vacation. He had a couple pops on the course with boys. I don't know. But yeah, he's definitely back to form. So I think this is the Seider that we're going to be accustomed to see for the rest of his career here.
One too many ginger ales for the German boy. Derek, what do you think?
Said German engineering. It's hard to go to America and not have Oktoberfest every year, so I get it.
Derek, you think Mo Seider is over a sophomore slump, or what do you have to say about his recent surge in production?
I mean, it looks really good on paper right now, but at the same time, I just want to see it against some teams that are, better than Vancouver in general. Like, I want to see him actually produce when we actually need him to produce a lot more. Like, as of right now, we've been playing some easy teams. It's not been a real challenge for anybody on defense. Like, we can see even Larkin being pushed up more as forward, and we're seeing what happens with that, which is a great thing. Getting a lot more points for him, but at the same time, what's going to happen when we play against Edmonton, who has one of the best offensemen in the league, best power play in the league? Like, what's going to happen then? We got to see if he can produce and actually keep those stats up to keep us actually in the league.
Yeah, we got a tough schedule coming up. I think he got one of the toughest remaining schedules in the league, so we're really going to need him. And I think he'll step up. I mean, you saw him in the Edmonton game. He was holding his own against the best players in the league. So I don't see any indication he'll slow down at this point.
Yeah, I think we actually do have the toughest back half schedule in the league. I think that was, if not the top, it's probably definitely in the top 5. But that's been a thing since even last season, right? That I remember that being relevant as well in 2022 season. So yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, you even look at Mo Seider and the last 5 games, 5 assists, right? Last 10 games, it's 10 assists. So you can say that with Wallman versus Sherratt, he's putting up the same numbers, or at least assist-wise. The one thing I want to see a little bit more is the goal scoring. I do want to see that. But that comes with allowing Jake Wallman and Ben Sherratt to do what they're good at. Jake Wallman seems like he's someone who does have the offensive threat.
What's Sherratt good at again?
Ben Sherratt has the linebacker capability of going and trucking whoever the hell he wants and just leaving everyone else open.
Yep, just don't blow an assignment, and I'm fine with it.
You just love Sherratt way too much.
Oh yeah, we can't get enough of him. 4 more years, Stevie, make it happen.
That's Matt.
I mean, we're going to hear about it every single day until he's not on the Red Wings. So
if you're not hearing about it from us, you'll hear about it from every other Red Wing fan.
All right. But I do want to. So enough of Larkin on my end, but I do want to touch on, like I said, that third line of Jonathan Berggren, Joe Veleno, and David Perron. I don't know what it is with Veleno either. And it's the same thing as him with Michael Rasmussen, where at the beginning and then maybe towards 20 games into the season, things weren't looking as good as they are now for them. And I love Michael Rasmussen playing on the wing more so than center. and I love Joe Veleno playing the 3C. I know that the point production for both of them isn't technically there to be playing in the spots that they are currently right now. Like they have Michael Rasmussen on the second line, left wing, Joe Veleno playing third line. Okay. Joe Veleno has 9 points or something like that. If I want
He's
to
like
look
16.
Yeah, something around that. Just under 20.
Nothing to talk to your mom about, but at the same time, it's not bad.
Yeah, so he's on pace for 25 points in 81 games, for someone who's still just only 23 years old. And this is going to be his first full season. If you don't want to count the 21-22 season, which I won't, I'll admit that I do believe that that was still early for him. For someone who really needed help developing his defensive play, where he came from, what was it? He came from the Q as well, where he was just an offensive guy. I mean, the assists were there. He put up 59, or he played in 59 games, put up 42 goals, 62 assists, 104 points in his last year in Drummondville. And that's the reason why he ended up playing in Grand Rapids. That's the reason why he went over to Sweden. It was so that way he could develop that two-way game to be that two-way player that he wants to be and that we want him to be. Do I think he could be a 2C? We've talked about this. I would hope so. That's what I hope for him to be. I do think that there is a real situation where you do catch yourself where your real 2C does get injured and you have to call Joe Veleno up and he's just hitting that floor of the 2C, but a real elite 3C in my opinion. I do think that this is someone who could be the 40-point getter. I don't think that's unrealistic at all. As long as you put him with the right people, and so far, Jonathan Bergeron and David Perron look really good with them. And it showed in the power play and how Jonathan Bergeron got his goal. Yanni Burgers. Sorry. Joe Veleno just was right in the middle in the slot and then just made a real nice pass to Jonathan Bergeron, who was on the back end. And you saw that David Perron was on the side where the goalie was, but Bergeron was on the back door and was able to squeeze that puck all the way through for basically an empty net goal. I mean, it was really nice. And just like you guys said, yes, it was a late goal, but still, the play in general looked really good. And I'm really loving the fact that all these young players are starting to rise and show up to the occasion that they do want to be here and that they do belong here. Michael Rasmussen, Yanni Burgers, Joe Veleno have all been looking stellar this year, and I have no complaints with them whatsoever. I think they've just been great. And I hope that this isn't the peak for all of them. And I don't think that it is. And even talking about Michael Rasmussen, he had an A on the Monday night game.
I love seeing that.
I don't know if that's, I don't know if people realize this, but when Blashill was the coach and when they went to go play against Vancouver and Dennis Cholowski was on the team, they healthy scratched him and his parents were coming to the game.
Mm-hmm.
So is Lalone the nice guy for not benching him and giving him an A? And is Blashill an a-hole? Or is it just Michael Rasmussen's been playing so good that he just deserves an A now? Because they took it away from Sherratt. They still have one on Perron. So what is it with Michael Rasmussen's game? What has he been doing to turn it around?
Well, it's looking pretty good for the guy. He's doing a lot better than what he has been, especially at the beginning of the year. I like his stats right now. It's not too bad. I think you're saying, what is he, 10 for 10 right now in points for the last 10 games? That's not too bad at all. I really want to see it keep going well. Not very well. I know he got that A, which is a little different than what most people actually coming back from being not playing. But at the same time, maybe it was just due to his parents being there, A couple years ago, he was denied it. They didn't let him have it. Now his parents came again. He got the A. Why not? Maybe it'll be a long-term thing. Maybe not.
Yeah, Rasmussen has 8 points in his last 10 games, so you're close. But he has 3 points in his last 5. And you can't discount the way that he's been playing. But let's hear from you, Leslie. What do you think about Michael Rasmussen's lately surge?
Well, so before I start, I saw an interesting stat that I wanted to share with you guys. Michael Rasmussen has tied his previous season high of 27 points with 30 less games played. So can't really do math that well. I assume that's like a 40-point pace. So, all right, well there we go, even better. So
43.
look at the mental math on Zach. Love it.
Nah, elite prospects, my guy. That's
All right,
so nice.
good job. I don't know why I don't use that more, but anyways, yeah, he's a much better player this year. You can just tell with his game that he's playing with so much more confidence, and I think getting that A on his chest definitely gave him a little bit more confidence to play. It's really cool that he was able to do that in his hometown, and I think with getting the A on his chest, that's maybe not like a regular thing you're going to see in the next few years, but I could definitely see him wearing the A for, I don't know, the rest of his career here in a couple of years. I mean, and as far as Valeno, who you mentioned earlier, I think that he's playing with a lot more confidence too. You can definitely see that his game is only progressing from here. I really think that he could be a fantastic 3C for us. I unfortunately don't really see his ceiling going any higher than that. I suppose he could fill in if there was an injury to the 2C, or even he could play a wing, but the 3C spot, I think, for him is absolutely perfect. I think he absolutely shines in that role. And yeah, I just really like his game there, and hopefully we can see that for the rest of his career here.
Yeah, no, and you all, that was all great stuff, and I'll agree with you, Leslie, that I do think that Michael Rasmussen is a candidate where if Haran wasn't here and Sherrod still had an A, I could definitely see a world where you're going to give it to Michael Rasmussen. And this brings me to the next person of Tyler Bertuzzi, where people can make the argument where he probably should have gotten an A this year, but it's tough to give someone an A who hasn't been healthy, wasn't able to get his vaccine due to personal reasons, so he wasn't really doing it for the team, which we all know that hockey is a selfless sport. But let's talk about him. 3 points in his last 5 games for someone who broke both of his hands. That's pretty good. Now, Leslie and I talked about the trade options, who's open to possibly wanting a Tyler Bertuzzi. The teams were Dallas, Tampa Bay, Edmonton Oilers. We really didn't touch on Tampa. And for me, at least, I think that's because I don't like what they have left over. I think that they've pretty much utilized the same thing that the Red Wings were doing when they were all in their cup runs, right? Where they've spent so much to get those cup wins that they really don't have anything else much left other than picks. Tyler Bertuzzi, I said if you can get 2 seconds for him like you did with Atlanta CU, I would take it. A lot of people seem to be on the cusp of wanting prospects instead, which I'm okay with doing. But if I'm getting a prospect, it's going to be someone who can come in and play right now. I don't want an 18-year-old. I don't want a 19-year-old unless I know that they can start right away. So what do you guys think right now with the way that Tyler Bertuzzi has been playing? I know that it's only been one more game, but going up against a team like Edmonton again, who we just said is in the talks of potentially going after Bertuzzi, what is Bertuzzi going to have to do tonight to show Ken Holland that he misses him and wants him to be an Edmonton Oiler? And what would you guys like in return? What do you basically want to see out of Bertuzzi, and what do you think he should be doing tonight to show these other teams that he can stay healthy, he's still relevant, and he's still that hard-nosed player that we all know and love? Leslie?
I think all he has to do tonight is just keep playing his game, just keep doing what he's been doing since he came back from injury. It's definitely disappointing we couldn't see him for the rest of the year, not only because we want his trade value to maximize, but I would have loved to see the vintage Tyler Bertuzzi for the rest of his time here, and it really is so sad that we got robbed of that, because when he's on his game, he is truly such a fun player to watch, just how chippy he is. He goes to the dirty areas, he provides offense. I think a lot of teams are going to be looking at him and seeing everything that he can provide to their team, not necessarily what he's done this year, and he should get a pretty decent return. I'm not going to say he's going to get a hefty return, but if he can just impress in these last 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the deadline, then I think we're going to get a pretty good return. I think the Athanasiou return is a pretty good comparison. I think even maybe a late first round pick is pretty fair of a return for him, which I think if you're trading with Edmonton, that's probably the most attractive thing you could get back in the deal, considering they don't have much as far as prospects go. Another interesting piece going back, which maybe you could even get a little more from them, is if you take on a contract like Puljujarvi and just basically take that off their hands. And I don't know, maybe there's something still there with Puljujarvi. You've seen flashes with him. It's probably more likely than not that he's on his way out. So, but yeah, that's definitely an interesting return that I could see in my head. I do think he's going to get a good return no matter what he did, because I mean, you look at the Nick Leddy deal, and he got that return from St. Louis after playing, what was it, like 2 decent games, and the rest of the year he was just below average. So I really do think you can get something good in return for him, but I'm not lying when I say I might shed a single tear when we see Bert leave, because ever since he's been here through this rebuild, he's been one of my favorite players. So it'll be bittersweet, but you know, we'll still have the years and we'll still have the assets. So
It's funny that you brought up Puljujarvi, and I guess there were reports coming out. I can't remember how long ago this was. This was probably just a couple weeks ago. That Edmonton would basically be willing to trade Puljujarvi for a third. I do it. Just
I do
do
it in a
it
heartbeat. Yeah,
for
absolutely.
three mil left.
That third is nothing.
If you threw in, so okay, if Tyler Bertuzzi's contract comes in at just under 5 mil, what is it? Is it 4 mil? It's four
Four and a half, I
7
think, isn't it?
475. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
retain half of that, that's under 2.5 mil. Then you take on Puljujarvi's contract, that's 3 mil. So you're helping them out there. Throw in a prospect. You're definitely getting the deal done then. So not only are you getting Puljujarvi then at that point, you're also getting another young player. Puljujarvi is only 24 years old. I
He
can
still has
still
potential.
see a world, yeah, 100%. I still see a world where he could be a middle six player. We could use those. We don't have that many, especially a right wing. We don't have that many right wing prospects.
He'd
So,
be a perfect right wing for now. At least when the
and,
prospects are ready to go.
and as far as prospects, whatever you want to throw in there, I wouldn't count Puljujarvi as a prospect, to be honest with you. I think that kind of is over now. Granted, he still is an RFA. I wouldn't say that, considering that this is, believe it or not, this is his 6th season playing with Edmonton. I did not know that.
Wait a minute. What? So he's been playing
So
with them since 2017.
2016, when he was drafted, he started that
Jeez.
season. He played
I thought-
28
There we
games,
go.
8
Oh my
points.
god.
The best that he did put up in a season was last season. He put up 36 points in 65 games with a Connor McDavid and a Leon Draisaitl and a Zach Hyman and a little bit of Evander Kane. I don't know if it's him at this point. I don't know if it's the way they developed him, but that's what I would lean towards, considering that's a classic Ken Holland move, right? Where they did that with Rasmussen. They did that with Cholowski. They did that with Svechnikov. They did that with Zadina. They almost did that with Veleno. It's Puljujarvi. I would definitely go for Puljujarvi if I could. And if that's only a third, I'm including Tyler Bertuzzi, and they're sending me Puljujarvi, whatever prospect you can get their hands on. And then I think that's a good deal.
Yeah,
You're
you can
taking
stop it there, and that's a good deal. Yeah,
You're taking
Puljujarvi to me just seems like a guy who really could benefit from a change of scenery. I mean, we've seen that with Robbie Fabry, who obviously was on the outs in St. Louis, and he's turned into a pretty solid bottom 6 player for us. So I don't see any reason why Puljujarvi couldn't be the same thing. And another added benefit with that is Puljujarvi doesn't come with injury history like Fabry did. So that deal definitely sounds very, very interesting to me. I think even with unloading Puljujarvi, they might add in a second or a third too. I think that is the most likely scenario right there, because I feel like they'd just be at that point paying someone to take on that contract.
it's not that much, and you
No, it's
still
not a
have
whole lot, but I think they still would pay you to take that on.
no
Not a premium
because
price, but they would.
well, that was the rumor, right? Was saying that like they would trade him for a third. I don't think you're trading him and then giving something away. I think that they would rather just bury it at that point. But in the
Probably.
same token, they can't just bury it because they know that teams would take him. Because you're right, it is probably just a change of scenery. But there's a reason why people didn't take VRANA. There's a reason why people didn't take Ned because of the cap.
Yeah.
And the uncertainties. So I really don't know. But I do not think that Edmonton is in a spot to eagerly push him away to where they would even give someone something along with him. But Derek, I want to ask you the same question. Tyler Bertuzzi, Edmonton, what does he got to do in order to kind of show himself for teams or for Edmonton? What are you just hoping to see out of him tonight's game?
Oh, I'm on the same page as Matt. Guy's been one of my favorite players to watch. He is the best form of hockey. Just that rugged down, just gets in dirty. He does everything he's supposed to. He's all over the place, which, better or worse, isn't the greatest sometimes. But for the Red Wings, it's been working. We need a guy like him right now. And honestly, the Edmonton side of stuff, I don't know. If he wants to get noticed that way, he needs to get to a different team like that. He definitely has to get a better point production. He's been doing well in the last couple games, but at the same time, the goals just aren't there where he would want them to be up there at the skate. 21 games, 2 goals, I think. Definitely needs to put a little more production in there to be noticed if we want to get something good in a trade. But at the same time with Edmonton, I've been noticing they were also looking at Mr. Carlson over there in San Jose. So I don't know if that goes through how much more room they're going to be able to do, because that's going to be a hefty cap right there.
Yeah, I don't know what they would have to do in terms of their cap situation. I mean, if you just pull them up right now, they have literally 0 projected cap. And that Carlson contract, even if we retained half, you're still having to, like, that's over 5 mil of cap that's coming onto your team. So that means you got to move Puljujärvi, and then I don't even know who else you could even throw in there. I mean, like, they don't have anyone else that's really, I mean, Derek Ryan, Matthias Janmark, that equates over 2.5 mil. So that's 5.5 mil right there. And I don't even know what Erik Karlsson's contract. What's the number on his contract?
Oh, it's like 11 and a half, I think.
It's something ridiculous.
So that's 5.75 mil. If you divide it,
I mean, you would need a third team in there just to even make that cap work. I mean, it's just such a monumental, like, just cap gymnastics you would have to perform to get that trade done.
And just for one, Karlsson was an
ridiculous.
Arizona. Just for 1 second, he was an Arizona guy. Just like that one season, who was it that got traded from Columbus to us to Tampa? David Savard?
Yeah, I believe you're right. Yeah, I
think so.
He was a Red Wing for like 1 second.
Yeah.
Then you get rid of him.
Greatest.
I mean, you got to also look at Karlsson's production, though. Dude's on pace. He's a defenseman on pace to get 110 plus points this year. Yeah. It's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, it's such an astronomical deal, but it's so worth it to just try and get it done, because if he goes to your team that already has Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, not even mentioning their defense, they have Nurse and Barry, who are very good defensemen. I mean, they're a little overpaid, but you bring them into the defenseman room, and holy shit!
I mean, you got a top tier team. You're probably going to win the cup with that. Like, holy crap!
Yeah, that team doesn't win the cup. I mean, Karlsson's going to be like McDavid's Paul Coffey.
Now, here's my issue with it, is to where we went off topic with the Bertuzzi thing and the talk about Edmonton Oilers trade topics, but that's okay. But talking about it, I think that Edmonton is at a spot where they do want someone like Karlsson. I don't think that that's something that they want to do at the trade deadline. I think that's something that they do in the off season. It just makes more sense. I think that they're in a spot where don't change your defense right now, because they still have 2 young defensemen. They have Darnell Nurse, they have Tyson Barrie, whatever. I really don't know too much about them so far this season, but just maybe bolster it up just a little bit. You know, if they wanted Tyler Bertuzzi and Olli Maatta, we'll make it work somehow. That bolsters up your defense and your offense, and we'll retain as much cap as we can, and then we'll take a player or 2 if we have to. But the return has to make sense. And so that's why I don't see them going after a Karlsson until this offseason. because the San Jose Sharks have already made it relevant, I guess. Not even relevant's the word I want to use. They've already put it out there that they want multiple first round picks. So that's probably going to be your 2023, your 24, maybe your 25. I mean, even the Edmonton Oilers, they really don't have too many prospects. They have a Dylan Holloway. I don't even know where he's playing at right now. I know that that's pretty much one of their top prospects.
Is he not
And
still on the Oilers? I thought
Holloway?
he was playing with McDavid at one point, wasn't he?
Oh, he's on their roster right here. Yeah,
I
he's
believe
playing
he
on
is. Yeah.
and he's 21 years old, so that's
Yep.
probably your best prospect for them next to Puljujärvi, I guess. And they have some good young defensemen too. They have Evan Bouchard, Philip Broberg, but I don't see a world where they're going to let go of those two, considering how old that their defense is. You got Darnell Nurse, 28, Tyson Barrie, 31, Cody Ceci, 29, Brad Kulak, 29, Evan Bouchard, 23, Philip Broberg, 21. I don't think that they're in a world to get rid of those players. And then you have a Dylan Holloway who could play center and left wing. You already have McDavid, Leon Draisaitl who can play the center. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins can play center. Derek Ryan supposedly can play center. Ryan McLeod, who's 23, who's a prospect as well, can also play center. So maybe he's someone who gets traded too.
I'd love McLeod on this team. I feel like McLeod is a very underrated player on that team.
So it does seem like that it's going to be picks, at least for me. If I wanted Edmonton to make a trade for Tyler Bertuzzi and maybe an Olli Maatta, because I do believe that Olli Maatta will get traded, that helps them out in two ways: your forward and on your defense. We can't help their goaltending, and I don't think their goaltending at this point needs any fixing. They got Jack Campbell, they got Stuart Skinner. They'll be able to figure it out with those two somehow, some way, especially with the weak Western Conference.
And I mean, the team's just stacked in general. They really don't need more. They just need to produce a little bit.
Well, just imagine having a top six where it's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, Kane, and then you add in Tyler Bertuzzi. You're swapping out Puljujärvi.
I mean, that's the most stacked team in the West if that happens.
That's disgusting. That is
You should be winning every single game with that lineup. Just the top line alone should get you at least 3 to 4 goals a game.
Yeah, at minimum, you should be scoring 5 goals every game.
But that's kind of been the Oilers' issue in the past, right? Is that they're supplementing the bad defense for having really good offense, where it's like, okay, let's try to score as many as we can and then hope that they don't catch up to us. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't end up working in their favor. It goes to show because they haven't won any cups by having Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Well, I mean, that's never a winning formula in the playoffs. How many playoff games end in a shootout like that? It's whenever you get to the conference finals, it's teams button up and it's 3-1, 2-1, 2-0 games. That is just not a winning formula in the playoffs.
Right, and that's why I'm saying that I could definitely see him going after a Tyler Bertuzzi who is hard-nosed, who does go in those corners that no one else wants to. I mean, they also have Kane, so like you can have 2 of those players. That's good. You want to have more than just one of those players. And then Tyler Bertuzzi does get into hard-nosed painted areas to get those filthy goals, get in the players' faces and rough them up. Then you got a very defensive-minded Olli Maatta who has really good playoff experience, who has won a Stanley Cup.
2 of them. He's won 2 cups.
And that does nothing but help the Edmonton Oilers, where they don't have anyone on their team who's won a cup.
Yep.
That's very relevant still in today's NHL, where you need players that have had that experience to help them in the locker room and understand that they need to keep going and keep pressuring the other teams and make sure that they are the ones who make the mistake first before you do. So,
I mean, how else learn about that stuff except who was there to actually teach you what you're supposed to do in that situation? The Oilers don't.
Yeah, I think we just became an Edmonton Oilers podcast.
I know what the fuck just happened.
I want them to trade for our Red Wings players. I want to lease them. All right.
Just give us something good for our beautiful Bertuzzi, and I'll be happy.
Give us something for.
So before we go on to talk about other trade topics, that's been relevant around the league. Not really too much going on with the Red Wings. Larkin, like I said, I want to touch base on him on every episode. Larkin deserves a bag. I'm not saying that because Larkin has been doing good. Once again, I don't believe that he does get $9 million. Am I someone who wants him to get the bag? Yes. If it's going to take $9 million, good for him. Get as much as you want because you deserve it. However, Larkin is definitely giving the middle finger to the haters lately. He's been doing it night after night after night, and I guarantee you he does it tonight again. If it's not a goal, it's at least an assist. That still counts for something. If he can keep Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl off the board, that's a win for Dylan Larkin. That means he pressured them on defense really hard. So, Larkin, pay the man. I'm over. Rant. Done. Outie. Anyways, Red Wings play tonight at 9:30 p.m. against the Edmonton Oilers. Will Larkin continue his hot streak as of late? Leslie.
Yeah, 100%. I think he will. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say, oh, he's going to score a hat trick tonight. That'd be nice. But yeah, I think he's going to continue with it. I would be shocked if he's held off the point sheet. I mean, he's on a heater. He's a man playing with a purpose right now. And his purpose is to look up in the press box, lock eyes with Steve Yzerman, and say, give me my money. What did Rihanna say in the Super Bowl? Bitch better have my money. Bitch in this case being Steve Yzerman, which maybe we shouldn't call him a bitch, but yeah, pay the man. Just echo what
Hey,
you said.
you can. I'm not.
Pay the man.
Derek, what about you? What are you hoping to see from Larkin? Do you think he can keep it up tonight against the Edmonton Oilers? I want to see how he does actually against a decent team. What do you think?
Definitely going against a top team like this. I do think he's going to keep that score streak going. If he's going to score or not, maybe an assist in there, definitely. But I just want to keep seeing it going. Like we talked about, like right after the whatever it's called,
All-Star.
Yeah, All-Star break. We were talking about how if he wants to show has to start getting points per game, be like the player that we all thought he was. And out of nowhere, we noticed that, look at that. He's a point per game after we have to call him out. Not saying we can call the future or anything, but just saying it looked pretty good after we called that one out.
You know, we play again tonight, like we said, 9:30 against Edmonton. We play tomorrow against Calgary. Then we go Saturday to Seattle. You know, what are you guys hoping to get out of this? For me, I'm hoping to get the 5 points, or at least 3, I should say, actually. You know, I think getting a win and a tie is doable. What do you guys think, Leslie? Do you think that's doable? What are you kind of hoping to see?
Yeah, I definitely think that's doable. When I was looking at the schedule, that's kind of what I was thinking could be a pretty likely outcome. I just think with this whole road trip, you know, you're going to be on the West Coast for the next, I believe it's the next 3 games, and then you go all the way to Washington, and I think that's the last game of this road trip. So there's definitely going to be some burnout by then. That's a lot of travel and a lot of games just in a short time span. So I would like to see a few more wins sprinkled in here and there. Maybe I'd say maybe at least like 2 more wins and hopefully no T loss if we can get to that. But mainly what I'm hoping to see, not even just with the record, I would love to see just guys like Larkin and Berggren and Seider, just all the guys that have been hot. I hope they stay hot and continue this stellar play because these are guys who ideally they're going to be putting up this type of production. They're going to be this type of player for years and years to come on this team. So I just like to see more of the same out of them. And yeah, hopefully it'll just be a strong finish to this road trip here.
I like it. What about you, Derek? Same question.
Definitely want wins. I don't know how much of a recording we said got saved, but I will my spiel again. I want to see win. I want to see a win. I want to see a win. I want to see them beat the Oilers, Flames, and the Krakens. Krakens, good team, middle tier, not the best. Flames, we already beat them, so why not beat them again at their own home rink? Oilers, good team. Can't say they aren't, of course, but at the same time, the Red Wings, as long as we keep up with them, stay out of the penalty box, make sure we keep our offense strong and our defense even better, we should be able to pull something off there, especially what we did the last couple games. If we play like we did Monday, we should be okay. I don't see anything wrong with tossing out a couple wins here and there and there. And like I said before, I'll throw it out there for Leslie, a win against the Capitals as well on the other side of the country.
All hail Derek because he is the guy you want to listen to. He's the one who puts everything to fruition. So all hail Magic Conch Derek for sure.
All hail Magic Conch. I hate us.
So since there isn't really too much going on with the Red Wings in terms of trade rumors, other than choosing some other smaller names, why don't we do some fantasizing? Let's talk about how we already talked about Carlson going to Edmonton. Let's talk about what it would take for the Red Wings. Is it doable? No. Would we like for it to
Any
happen?
trade's doable. You
Yeah.
can trade for McDavid if you want, but God, man, that is going to be a tough trade to facilitate. It's not even really up to the Red Wings. You need to bring a third team in just to handle all the money. I mean, he's making $11.5 million for, I believe it's the next 4 or 5 years. So, yeah, he's going to come with a very, very high price tag, both in cap hit and assets alone. Just off the top of my head, you might have to give up like a Marco Casper, this year's first, possibly even next year's first, or maybe a second, and a roster player too. I'm gonna say maybe one of Joe Veleno or Michael Rasmussen. And after going through all that, do you really want to give up that much for Erik Karlsson, who I don't know how old he is off the top of my head, but he's probably only got 4 or 5 years left. And when you look at your roster after that trade, are you really thinking that's still going to be a playoff team? I don't know. Maybe you will, but I do know for sure that the way this team is right now, they're going to need a lot more than just Karlsson to even get over the hump and make a run for the cup. They might be able to sneak in the playoffs, but even that's still a tall tale. So, is it doable? Yeah. If I was in Steve Yzerman's shoes, I don't think I'd do it, but it's definitely worth considering and trying to put together a plan.
Yeah. Actually, Derek, yeah, what are you giving up for Karlsson, man? I'll ask you. What are you gonna do?
I ain't doing crap. We would never get Karlsson. If we had to do Karlsson, it would be something dramatic, just like Leslie was saying, something just like a 3-way, 4-way team trade that just has to cover that cap. Like who are you gonna trade? Like, what are you gonna do for that? And especially like the fact that I think he's what, mid-30s at this point, maybe like a little before that, 32. Yeah, his maybe has 5-6 years. He probably has the extent, like the remainder of his contract, and maybe like 2 or 3 years after that, just to be like that supporting guy in the team with all the knowledge and know-how how to train somebody up. But if whoever's going to take him is going to take a really big hit probably in a couple of years. I mean, he's going to be great next year and the year after that, and possibly the year after that, but it's not going to be a team that he's not going to be the guy that brings you straight to the Stanley Cup every year. He's just going to be that good support guy that you really want as a defenseman, but not for the long run, I don't think.
If we were still talking about 2016 and 2017 Erik Karlsson, I'd do this deal in the heartbeat.
I'd trade on my left nut for that.
Yeah.
No kids. Let's go. I'll take Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
Unrealistically happening? Yeah. I mean, what I would give up for Erik Karlsson if I was in a cup contending window, it's definitely starting with Marco Casper. It's definitely even going towards Simon Edvinsson. I think you're starting at least with those two. If you're not throwing picks in, then I think you're throwing in a first as well. And there's probably more to that. And it might not even be that much if you are going to take that whole entire salary. And that is something the Red Wings could do right now. They do have
the cap space.
They could do it. Yeah.
They could do that. So that definitely brings down the asking price a little bit. But by sacrificing Edvinsson and Marco Casper,
yeah,
for a right D that you don't need when you already have Seider, Hronek, it just doesn't make sense. You might even have to talk to Hronek in there as well.
Considering with the cap, I mean, you could do it right now, but then keep in mind you still have to sign Seider, you have to sign Raymond, and we still have Larkin.
Especially for a team that's rebuilding like us, wouldn't it be worth it?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe it'd be worth it if you could really figure out the cap and the way that works, but I don't know. I think it's just too much trouble and it's worth. If we were like on the bubble and let's say we made like playoffs the past 2 years and we need that extra little kick in the ass to get past the first round, maybe you're considering it. Maybe then it's looking like a good deal, but just with the sheer assets for the future, which this team really, really needs, that's the most important thing right now, plus figuring out the cap, it's almost more trouble than it's worth.
So I think that's enough about Karlsson. I think we kind of put in our good 2 cents on that person and how it makes no sense for the Red Wings currently. Maybe in the future? No. Anyways, on to the next person, Patrick Kane.
Ooh,
favorite person.
That's a spicy one.
Fantasy. I'll start with this one. Me personally, I'm not touching that guy with a 10-foot pole. I don't want to help out the Blackhawks. And I definitely don't want Patrick Kane. But if I were in a cup contending window, I the rumor is that he was supposed to be Vladimir Tarasenko in that trade going to New York, and New York was nervous about his health history and what was coming back from the testing or whatever it was. I think the asking price for Kane was too much, more so than it was for Vladimir Tarasenko, and I think for that reason, that would be why I'm out. But if I am going to trade for Kane, I'm offering the same thing that New York did for Vladimir Tarasenko, and I don't think it's going to be anything more than that, especially for a guy who has one more year left. And he really hasn't done all that much lately, honestly. I mean, Derek, you would probably know a little bit more than I do in terms of at least you had him on fantasy. But I'm trying to pull up his stat card so I can waste some time. He hasn't scored 30 goals since 1920. He put up 33 goals, 51 assists, 84 points in 70 games. Since then, last season he got 26 goals.
Last time he did good, I had him on my fantasy team, and it was like 2018 or 19. He hasn't done crap since then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is this season, and Chicago's probably selling it based off of the fact that they're tanking, and it's very real that they are. If
Oh my gosh, Chicago's so bad this year.
yelling at me at the screen saying that they're not, check yourself real freaking
Go
quick.
watch. Just go grab any 5 games this year from Chicago. They will probably lose every single one, and it'll be embarrassing.
Oh yeah, I mean they're currently, the last time we checked, they're losing 5-2 against Toronto. So I know
They got
that
2 goals.
I know Toronto's good, but that is just a testament to how bad Chicago is this year.
I mean, they don't even have Austin Matthews still. Like, Jesus Christ.
So, but yeah, to be honest with you, that's probably what I'm going to offer, is the same thing that they gave up for Vladimir Tarasenko, and it is not going to be anything more, considering that what we're giving up probably would be better than what the New York Rangers gave up in terms of the prospects and then in terms of the pick, because of us not being in the same spot as New York. So Chicago would bank off of it, and they would win the trade at the end of that. So I'm not doing that. What would you guys give up for Kane, if anything? You could say that you're not going to give up anything. That's totally fine. But I do want to hear from you. Let's start with Derek.
I'll give them a shot.
Sure.
I love it.
Just Oz Ben right out there.
Make it happen.
Flat trade. That's it.
50%.
Take him or leave it. I know it might break your heart, Zach, but yeah, that's maybe we can throw in, like, maybe like a Suitor and a Sherrod just to get him out of here still. But I just don't want him. Kane was great a long time ago, and now he's just getting old. His best years, it look like they're behind him at this point. It's just not going to be worth it. It's like he can't bring that team. Like, he's not doing anything for Chicago. Chicago, again, yes, they're tanking this year, but at the same time, he has just not showed any promise or anything.
No, and he's 34 years old, so I really don't want to touch that. We already have a David Perron. That's good enough for me. Leslie?
That's the oldest one.
What are you giving up for Kane?
Well, I mean, I'm not giving up anything for Kane because I don't want him at all. Yeah, the biggest thing for me, like if I'm a GM of a playoff team and I want to add some, like a top 6, maybe middle 6 winger, I think it's tough to really look at Kane. I understand why GMs want to look at him, and just based on his history and what he's done in Chicago. I mean, he's won 3 cups, for Christ's sake, as an assistant captain. So yeah, come playoff time, he might give you some of that added production, but I do remember hearing reports throughout the season that he is playing injured. He has kind of a lingering, I think it's a hip injury that has been bothering him all year, so that contributes to what is likely going to be his worst season as a Blackhawk and just an NHLer in general. I would imagine that Chicago is setting the price pretty high on him just based on his playoff pedigree, what he's done in the past, not necessarily what he's done here, kind of like what we were talking about with Tyler Bertuzzi. Just, with the position that the Blackhawks are in, they want to just try and get as much as they possibly can for the future, because this is a at least 10-year project they have building right now. So if you're really that needy for playoff scoring. I think about a team like the Dallas Stars. Maybe they could use his services. But it really depends on how desperate you are, because I think that price is going to come very high. I really do. And I know we weren't talking about him, but I'll just add in Jonathan Toews, who has also been rumors. That price is going to be high too, because he's the captain. So, yeah, if you really want those guys, I think there's still some value there. I think it still is worth it, but don't be expected to not get a cheap deal.
No, I'm there with you. I think, yeah, going off a little bit off the topic. I think that they do have value, and I do think that they can bring the value to another team. However, I think the issue becomes that the general manager of Chicago is expecting a return that he should have gotten last season. That's when he should have traded him. Both of them, to be honest with you. I think Taves was actually injured last season. I could be wrong. I know that he wasn't doing as well.
He's been injured a lot.
Yeah, and that's, and the age comes with it. They're both 34 years old. I mean, their prime is well behind them. Yeah, Jonathan Taves, he played 71 games and had 37 points. And then the year before that, he just didn't play at all. So I think that's when he was injured. But this season, it's a little bit of a, not resurgence, I guess. I mean, he's on pace for 46 points in 76 games. So you're right, Leslie. Like, they do have the adequateness to provide help to a team that would need it going into the playoffs and going over that hump. They have won 3 Stanley Cups. That's definitely there. However, I think what's going to shoot them in the foot is that the asking price is too high. And then before it's too late, they're not going to end up being traded. And then Chicago's just left stuck paying them and they just walk.
No, so I think they'll still be traded, but I think if it comes down to it and it's deadline day, the GM is pretty much going to be forced to trade them for a little lesser.
Yes.
I don't know. I just feel like if I'm in that GM's position, his name is escaping me. I can't remember his name. But if I'm in his position, I'm going to try and get the most value I possibly can out of my 2 players who have been in Chicago for their entire career and have won 3 cups there and have all that experience to bring to a team. I'm absolutely signing the price high. Will you get that price in a trade? Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but at the end of the day, the worst thing you can do is not accept the trade, and you're just standing there holding the bag with these guys.
At the end of the day, it's the business side of things, though, right?
Sure
that
is.
you have to try and get what you feel like is worth, not because you're just trying to help this team. Like, that's not what you're in the business to do. You have to help yourself while also helping this other team.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no, I agree with you that like there is still a realistic expectation that they will be traded, but I think that if it's not what they expect to get in return, there is the chance that they won't get traded because they just are firm on that price. Now, is there a situation where they could take less on their price? I still think that they can get a first for Kane and probably a little bit more.
Oh, no doubt they can, yeah.
But I definitely see a reality where no one comes to them giving them that, and then they're just stuck. Because you're not going to trade Patrick Kane for a second. It's just not real. That's not realistic. That would be us saying if Larkin was to say, like, I just don't want to play with you guys, and the whole entire league knew it, like, I'm not trading Larkin for just a second. Well, actually, yeah, at that point I would, if he made it clear that he just doesn't want to be with the team and that came out there. But we all know that Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves will not be playing with the Blackhawks after this season. It's clear. They don't want to be with the rebuilding team. I wouldn't be surprised if they even said they wanted to retire. You already got 3 cups. What else do you need? A 4th?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked either.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset with a couple more $1 million either, but
I mean, I could see a realistic world where even if they do go to some other team, what if Kane wanted to go to Tampa Bay? I'll take a $1 million contract for 1 year.
I mean, heck yeah, that's one place you want to go and retire after.
Why
I mean,
not?
also, you got to look at the other side of it. Like, what teams out there are extremely young right now? Like, that's probably the team that most likely needs these 2 players.
Buffalo?
Yeah, Buffalo too. Kane is from that area too.
See, that could be a reason to go back. I mean, I could see that happening because they'll probably give him a good amount of money, and he's going to be there to help build that team up because you have a bunch of children.
Eric, I don't know if you know this. You know what the recent rumor is for Patrick Kane, though? Or at least what people want to happen?
What's that?
The Toronto Maple Leafs. So they can finally get into the second round and then get knocked out
Nope. What are they going to do?
Losers.
What money?
Yeah.
Who's gonna get them?
What are we even doing?
Yeah.
They're capped out the hell right now. Jesus Christ.
So one last person I want to talk about, and we'll end it from here. Jacob Chicherin. I feel like that this is probably the player that makes the most sense that you would trade for to come onto the Red Wings right now, or at least going into the offseason, who plays left D. And looking at our left D, you have Ben Chiarot, Ole Mata, and then you have Jake Wallman, who's currently injured, but he'll be back eventually. Going into the offseason, if you don't trade Wallman and you do trade Ole Mata, what are you? I guess I should just be asking you guys straight up. What are you trading for Jacob Chicherin? Because this is someone that could definitely help out your blue line for sure. And this is going to be your top left-handed D who then doesn't put as much pressure on Simon Edmondson to come up as quickly, or at least when he does make it up onto the team next season, which is most likely going to happen. I'm 90% certain of that. Simon Edmondson can just play the third pairing, just let him learn the league. And then eventually, once he starts getting a little more comfortable, Chiarot goes down to the third, Simon Edmondson goes to the second, you still have Chicherin right there at the top with Seider. So, Derek, are you going to give up your righty for Chicherin, or is it still your left?
I ain't having kids. I'll go with the left two or the right one. You know, I don't know which one I named off. Yeah, I'll give up both of them at this point. But yeah, I would. Man, I'd definitely give at least a first round next year, second round the year after that, then maybe a top prospect even, or even just somebody on our team now that's just. I mean, not Larkin, but a high end forward or something like that. Maybe just replace that on their side.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely give a good amount just to see that guy over on our side. He is just doing great all year round right now. He's a great player. Definitely would help us improve our defense, and that's one area that we're looking into, because once we get that going, then we can send Larkin up the ice, make him score all the goals for us. He'll be doing what he's supposed to be doing, and especially if we get that defense back there.
Before you go on, Leslie, I want to touch on this first. And one thing that I have made apparent, especially in Twitter, when people keep on talking about Wallman, and then you keep on seeing that you have Chiarot for another 3 years. If you are going to sign Wallman, whether if that's like 2 to 4 years, 5 years, whatever you want it to be, you have Simon Edmondson, you have Albert Johansson, you have Wallander eventually coming, you have Donovan Sabrino, and you have a bunch of other lefty prospects eventually have to come up. They're all relatively around the same age within 3 to 4 years. If they all pan out to be what we expect them to be, hoping that they will be at least top 4D prospects, some of those guys are going to have to go. I mean, if we didn't sign Chiarot to the contract that we did, and Wallman wasn't having the not resurgence, but isn't playing up to the par that he is right now, that would be a different story. So this is where I'm kind of spinning the wheels, where what if you included Wallman or Chiarot somehow in a deal to where you can then bring in a Jacob Chicherin? You then either have a Wallman or Simon Edmondson, and then you have Chicherin right there. So like that's how I kind of look at it, but I know that's unrealistic. I don't think Arizona would go after Jake Wallman based on the fact that he hasn't played as many games yet. So it's still very raw material of what we're seeing out of him. And I can see a realistic expectation where we kind of tell him, we're putting down 2 years at $3 million. We want to see you do this again for another 2 years. Then we'll give you the 5 to 7 year deal, whatever it is. Sure. That's cool with me. Or you trade him because he just kept on doing it. Or if he doesn't, whatever. No big deal. But if
I were any trade with Chiarot, I love it. So
if I was trading for Chicherin, I would assume that it's probably going to be somewhere close to the Tarasenko deal, where you're getting a roster player, so it's probably going to be a forward. You're probably going to send a prospect that replaces Jacob Chicherin, so maybe not Edvinson. You can maybe put in an Albert Johansson, maybe Wallander, depending on who you have as the higher ceiling, lower floor, or higher floor, sorry, however you want to say it. And then you're probably throwing in a first-round pick. You're absolutely right, Derek. And I think the first-round pick is definitely something that they're at least going to want. If you could somehow give them the 2024 first, that's better than the 2023rd.
Oh, 100%. Especially with what's coming up this year in the draft. Oof. Would not want to lose the first. But, of course, for him, give or take, you get a great defenseman, lose someone in the first round who might be just amazing, but you never know.
Personally, though, I am not trading for Chychrun at the deadline. I am waiting until the offseason and waiting for Wallman to figure out if this is something that he can keep on doing or if that's just a Seider effect. Because like I said, we brought up earlier how now Seider is doing good with Sherratt. Is it Seider or is Wallman doing because Wallman is Wallman? But that's because Yzerman's been watching Wallman for so long. It's real. We talked about that before. That Yzerman has been watching Wallman for a long time. So it's just tough. I do feel like that you got to trade some of these lefty prospects. But going off topic, Leslie, what are you giving up for Chychrun?
Well, before I go into what I would give up for him, I just want to point out it'd be kind of funny if we traded for him because remember, Arizona picked him with the pick we sent over when they took the remainder of Datsut's contract. So if that never happened, we're sitting here not even worrying about this because he's already on the team and we drafted and developed him. But anyways, that's a whole other tangent that's not really related to this. I'm definitely comfortable with giving up one of our lefty prospects. Like you said, we have a whole lot in our cupboard, so I think we're pretty set on giving up one of them because eventually we will have a pretty big logjam there, and one of them is going to be on the outs anyways. I think just with all of them there in Grand Rapids, or really just our cupboard in general, not just in Grand Rapids, I think the most comfortable I would be giving up is Albert Johansson. Basically, just what I see him capping out at is just a solid, big defensive defenseman, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you definitely need those guys, and they are valuable, but considering you have Edvinsson there and you have Wallinger there, and I think their ceilings personally are much higher than Johansson's. Not to say that Johansson won't be a solid player, but I think their ceilings are higher. I'm definitely comfortable packaging him in a deal for Chychrun. I don't really want to touch Wallman. I want to just let him figure out what he wants to do with his contract. I would love to just keep him here because I think he does benefit a little bit from the Seider effect, which, to be fair, any defenseman playing with Seider will benefit from that, except apparently Ben Sherratt. But he's a lost cause, so that doesn't really matter. But I would like to keep him here in Detroit, and I don't think you really need to package him in a trade. I think a trade that makes sense for both sides is definitely not this year's first. You don't want to give up a chance at getting Bedard unless you're absolutely certain adding Chychrun could put you into the playoff race, which I don't think it will with this roster. I think I'd be comfortable putting in next year's first, Albert Johansson. And oh boy, what else would you really need to get that done? Possibly a depth player like Pius Suter, maybe Sundqvist. I think all that alone, that's a pretty solid deal, and I think even when you put that in, you're getting Chychrun back and a roster player. Oh, let me see. What do I want? Maybe like Nick Ritchie or Jay O'Brien packaged into that deal. I think that's a pretty solid deal right there. I'd be happy with that. I think Chychrun is a guy. What was that?
Why are they throwing in a player with Chychrun again?
Isn't it like the rumor that they want to add a roster player with that too? That they want to not only ship off Chychrun, but they want to like ship off roster player too to add up some space? Or is that just something I completely made up?
I think I heard something about that too.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I think that's what the whole holdup was with the LA trade and why he's not traded yet, is I think that the Coyotes wanted to package another player into the deal, and LA wasn't down with that. So I think that's why it's taken so long. I guess you can operate on the sense that there's not going to be a roster player thrown in, and it'll just be Chychrun, in which case the trade that I put out there, I think, is a pretty fair trade. I think that's good for both sides.
I figured that was an issue on LA side, that Arizona didn't like the extra player that LA was adding into the trade. That's how I read it. So,
possibly. It's kind of like a gray area. I don't think the whole details are really out. I don't know if it's clear that it's one side holding up the other at this point.
I just know that Chychrun is still sitting And this is like his
Yeah.
third or fourth sitting, so something's got to happen eventually, or else he's just going to be sitting for the rest of the time until trade deadline. So hopefully that doesn't
I mean,
happen.
that's what everyone's talking about. Like GMs are getting kind of annoyed with it.
Maybe. I mean, I
Everyone's
think
like, this
it's
is taking too long.
there's a lot of teams, there's a lot of playoff teams out there that would be interested in him. I think Seattle would be a good fit for him. I think Edmonton would be a good fit for him. There's really no end of teams that could deal with his services. So if LA is holding up the deal,
Right.
Arizona could just say, you know what, we don't need you anyways. We have like 5 other teams knocking on the door. So with you or without you, he's getting traded.
I mean, I think where it gets tricky is that the asking price is more if you're trading for him at the deadline to have that extra, 20 games of the regular season, and then hopefully you can get him to play 20 games in the playoffs. You're paying extra for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a world where we're sitting there and he doesn't get traded, and then in the offseason that's when he gets
I don't
traded.
think that's going to happen, though. I think he'll go before the deadline. I think it's just, it's been a deal that's been in the works for so long. I mean, we've been sitting here for, what is this, like our 3rd year hearing that he's in trade rumors. So I can't imagine at this point they would take that long to make a trade. I think they would just go with whatever team makes the most sense and gives them the best value, and they'd ship him off. I don't really see why they would have to wait until the deadline and after that until free agency.
Just comes down to how bad the team really wants him. LA, come
It
knocking.
Sure does. Yep, it sure does.
Give up what you have to get yourself a Chychrun and potentially get yourself another cup. And that would be would that be their 3rd cup in like 10 years?
Their 3rd cup since 2012. So 11 years technically, I think.
Oh my God, that is insane.
Yeah.
But I think that about wraps it up for tonight. But once again, we want to say thank you to everyone. Thanks for joining us once again. I do want to remind you all, if you are watching up to this point, towards the end of the video, to subscribe, hit the notification bell, smash the like button, and go ahead and leave a comment if you're feeling fancy enough. Derek would love you if you did. So would Leslie. And so would I. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you stopping by. Go Red Wings. We'll see y'all next episode on Monday.
Night, everyone.
Peace out, y'all.